What's so fascinating, Ivan, about the reporting that you've just been doing is that, well, a report that you reviewed websites of more than 3,500 companies. And basically, you're seeing so-called tracking pixels from TikTok's parent company present in even some government websites. Can you tell us about how difficult curtailing data collection will be for TikTok?
Yes, thanks for asking. That's a very great question. It's one of the things that we found was really eye-opening is just how many pixels and trackers are actually collecting sensitive user information without ever asking for consent, and very often without even companies whose websites they're running on being aware of those pixels and trackers being present there. And that it is very, very common. It is not just a TikTok concern; it's broader concern, obviously. We've seen Google, Meta, Adobe, Microsoft, all kinds of tech companies being present there. But what is really concerning is that, for example, ByteDance and TikTok were banned by executive orders, and they were still present on government websites.
So, if we do see a ban, for example, of TikTok here in the United States, does it do anything?
Um, well, ban or change of ownership or a ban will not necessarily solve all the problems kind of once and for all. What I believe is really concerning is that there is no governance around what actually happens with the data that is being collected. It's less of a ban of TikTok, more of having clear rules for all the players to follow and have third-party validation, maybe auditing and accountability and responsibility for bodies who do not follow the rules and violate them.
Can you, just for those who are not particularly adept to understanding what embedded pixels really mean, what is it? What is happening? What is being teased out of us in terms of our own data?
Yeah. So what are pixels? They're just like mini spy balloons. Remember that giant spy balloon a few weeks ago that Air Force shot out of the sky? So pixels are like tiny spy balloons that are embedded into websites we all use every day, like when you book your appointment with a doctor, when you're perhaps renewing your driver's license or shopping or doing anything else. And they're watching everything you do or a person does. They can collect, and often we see they're actually grabbing everything that you're typing into the forms, like your passwords, your credit card numbers, maybe your diagnosis, your health records, and anything else. So that's a really big concern with pixels. And what we found that they're actually doing.
Why, if we went to executives at not just TikTok, but as you mentioned, whether it be other companies, Microsoft, Meta, what would they say they're using them for in a legitimate manner?
Yeah, so pixels are legitimate business tools because companies need to market, they need to advertise, they need to attract customers, they need to grow. So pixels do have very legitimate rules, purpose. What they don't have is clear rules that they need to follow. And very often we've found that pixels are doing way more and collecting way more information than anyone realizes.
Okay, but how can you put the genie back in the bottle? If these things are already out there, and you've said through your 3,500 companies and organizations that you've looked at, was it websites across 27 states of US state governments are being implicated here? What's to be done? Can you clean up the system in any way, or is it more just about disclosure?
Well, cleaning up, there's no magic bullet. There's no magic wand that will solve the problem once and for all overnight. But there are steps, definitely. Some jurisdictions already have taken clear steps. Like in Europe, there's GDPR, and people are being held accountable for breaking it. So it's a continuous clarity, driving clarity, and clarity of what needs to be done, just like what has been done in the financial sector. And we've seen that financial sector is now a lot more robust because of regulations.
Ivan, of course, you've made this data public. Have any of the US state governments that manage the websites come to you and said, what can be done? What are you doing with your own data that you're managing to now bring to light?
Yes, definitely. We've been reached out by Department of Justices and teams from various states already. And just like in a Wall Street Journal article published a few days ago, they mentioned that even the states that they have validated where TikTok was present and collecting information, that they quickly went in and remediated to make sure it's not there and that removed it. So there is technical measures that can be put in place to prevent this, but it's there is no priority on it or a clear awareness how common that issue is. But it is solvable.
Let's also just bring in our own audience for a moment, Ivan. And we went to them sort of ultimately asking, do you care very much about TikTok and whether or not they should sell off to a US company, whether they even use the app? I have to say, it's seemingly our audience, a technology-focused audience, actually half of them basically don't use the app at all. I'm interested in whether you think people care about the data, the consumer. How would you say to them that you should care about where your data is ending up?
Oh, that's a very big question. Well, why we care or why to care is, first of all, it's the freedom. When it's important, protecting the freedom to me personally is really important. So I'm based in Toronto, Canada, and right now there are concerns in the talks that there were, interference by China in the Canadian election process, for example, or there's many other topics that are being brought up in the current congressional hearing with the CEO of TikTok, where the data is being collected or has been accessed for spying, for surveillance on members of the military, members of sensitive groups of people. So there's definitely, I see personally, there's a definitely big impact on us as people. Maybe not felt immediately right away, but over some period of time, it will definitely creep in and can impact all of us.